Good morning, New Eden! Today is November 6th, 2021, and welcome to the Federation Frontline Report, a podcast about EVE Online with a focus on interviewing the players of EVE Online as well as faction warfare news. I'm your host, Frozen Fallout, and today we have a very special episode that we're going to be doing. This is outside of our normal scheduled time. We're with Ohpehk of the Local is Primary Alliance. How you doing, Ohpehk?
I'm all good, dude. I'm all good. Thanks for having me.
Awesome. Yeah, it's great to have you on. It's great to have the Amar perspective come on over to the show. I'm really excited to hear what you have to say about faction warfare. But let's kind of start this off with the Wayback Machine. How far or what got you into faction warfare into EVE Online, and what was the catalyst for that?
So I've been wanting to play EVE Online for a long time. I've been reading about it a lot in PC Gamer magazine. I used to read it like every month, buy it every month, and always tried it out and just never really got into it. Never joined a player corp. So then I tried it once again because they posted an article, and it was basically saying that they had started up their own player corporation. So I decided to join that. And I went in with the intention of becoming like an industrialist and building loads of stuff, and that was what to me that sounded interesting about the game.
Mm-hmm.
And then we got war decked, and this was like my first taste of PvP. And
What year was this?
it must have been the tail end of 2011 or the start of 2012, around then.
Okay. Yep.
So we got war decked, lots of spaceships, and I was like, wow, this is pretty fucking cool actually. Like, you lose your shit and it's gone forever. This is pretty interesting. And then we kind of tried to fight back and fed terribly and all this, that, and the other. And then it kind of got me interested into the mechanics of PvP, and I started like roam low sec and then started to roam null sec. And I was like, you know what, I'm gonna go off to null and tried my hand there.
So what was the during that time? What were the options that you were seeing for being able to pick something to go out to 0.0?
I'll just like grab a slicer, you know.
Well, I mean, did you join up with like a 0.0 corporation,
Oh,
or did
sorry,
you
yeah.
stay with like the high sec and just roam out there when you wanted to go find a fight?
At first, I stayed with the high sec and just roamed out there every now and again, but no one really wanted to come roam with me. I try to get dudes to come roam, and they're all just focused on PV mostly, so I let them to it. And eventually joined a corporation called, what was it called? The Last Call. Joined, and they were part of Black Core Alliance, and they lived in the drones back in 2012.
Okay, yeah, that it's interesting as I had joined up with a similar sounding alliance, which is the Interstellar Alcoholic Conglomerate, but I always found those kind of like the last call, or kind of
Yeah,
the drinking
isn't it?
references of we're just drinking buddies out to kill shit. Was like, yeah, that's the group that I want to go join. Like,
Yeah, it was a cool group, and they were very. I mean, the alliance was very PVE based, but our corp was very PvP heavy, and we would often go into low sec faction warfare. And kind of, I remember there was a few Amamaki tournaments that the locals hosted there. There was like frigate 1v1s and frigate free for alls, and we'd go down there and like hone our skills, or we'd go gank some people plexing or whatever. And then basically we got yeah. I wanted to push myself more, so I joined a different corp after that, called Broski North, the best Christian gamer corporation in the game. And
awesome.
and then we were part of Black Legion, and we just did loads of horrible things to lots of people across the universe.
Awesome. So what was it that kind of drove you into faction warfare eventually?
So for me, well, I had an alt that I would basically plex farm and occasionally run missions with, and yeah, just like sometimes PvP on it as well, because when you had a ticker like Black Legion, not a lot of people at that time really wanted to fight you, and it was kind of annoying. So I made an alt to kind of ease that as well, and then kind of just enjoyed it. You know, I really enjoyed it, and then I stopped playing the game. In fact, this is the main point. I stopped playing the game, came back, and like my corp was more or less dead, and the alliance was kind of dead. So I was like, I'm going to join faction warfare because I know it's somewhere you can go and roam around easy, get some fights, and not have to worry about it too much, you know. So I like solo and small gang as well.
So what was about the year that you joined up with faction warfare?
I think the first time, maybe 2015. I'm going to quickly check actually. It's funnily enough, I think the first time I was in Galente, in Rapid Withdrawal.
Oh, really? Okay. Yep. Very familiar with rapid withdrawal and
Rapid Withdrawal.
rapid withdrawal. The best game in the best fleet in the game. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
So let me. I'm checking. Signs. So yeah, it's about 2015, I think. Yeah.
And
2014.
Was that the first time that you joined up with faction warfare with alts, or was that your first
with my main? Yeah.
That was your main. Okay. Awesome.
Yeah, I was in Rapid Withdrawal for a while, and then it looks like actually went over to Amar and joined some other corp there for a little bit, and then I went back to Null. I basically had like a break of like 5 years.
Yeah, and I know how that goes. I've been in and out of faction warfare since the beginning, and really making a lot of like, like I go out to 0.0 and jump back in, and I made up built up a corporation, X Meta, before they got switched over to the new CEO, and that was because I ended up going back out to 0.0 because I was like, okay, this corp is doing well, but I'm partying with a lot of 0.0 dudes. And I just want to go check out that gameplay and go hang out with these guys that I'm partying with all the time. And so I was like, yeah, let's go ahead. You guys go to take the corporation. But so I get that idea. You're just in and out of faction warfare.
It would basically be like when friends would kind of resub back into the game, and they would usually go to Null, so I'd go and join them. And then whenever friends would like unsub, or I would unsub and come back, and I would be like, okay, I'll just go to faction warfare and roam around there and find content where I know there's going to be plenty.
And so, how did you get involved with local as primary? And are you fleet commander? Ground soldier? What do you do anything
I'm the
within?
Divine Commodore of local as primary and the Amar militia.
Awesome.
And I lead the
I love that.
Fleets into the fleets into battle. And I blob many a men.
So you're a leader that is on the front line.
Yeah, well, not at the moment, but I'm like one of the European FCs.
That's awesome. So, what are some of the things that you would like to see changed? Actually, let's start with, before we get to change. What are some of the things you like about faction warfare? What's been keeping you in faction warfare? And what's the lay of the land look like for you these days?
The dank mission running in LP is why I stay in faction warfare. but on a serious note, I really love the scale of it, and the fact that it's so easy to go out and get a fight. Like I was saying earlier, I do small gang and solo a lot, as well as actual fleet stuff. And you can just rock out with like 3 dudes and find a fight really quick. And even like the bigger fleet fights, they're not that big in the grand scheme of things. So it's like a really nice scale where you don't get tie-dye too much, and it's a lot more on the wire.
Yeah, definitely. And lots of love coming from chat for you. Best Euro FC ever. #1 Commodore.
#1 Commodore, dude. Divine
Commodore. Sorry, I apologize. Commodore. Ohpehk, man good.
I'm very good at feeding fleets. That's my speciality.
Yeah, that was feeding into Harkin every day was
Oh yeah. And sometimes snuffed out as well. There's been a few of them.
I love feeding fleets. My fleet mates sometimes don't appreciate it, but most of the time they do too. These days I just take out a bunch of thrashers and I'm just like, go fucking shoot something, die. Everybody's like, I'm dying. I'm like, great, you're dying.
I do it like half bill fucking ships, and I feel really bad sometimes, but at the end of the day, I don't give a fuck. It's pixels. Fuck you guys if you cry about it.
It's pixels. That's beautiful, man. That is the kind of people we need in faction warfare. Is the desire to go out and murder shit and don't care if you get murdered. Because I mean, we're immortal.
There's nice ships in the game for a reason, you know. They're there to be used, so use them.
Yep. Yeah, it's so what's the lay of the land like these days in like the Amar war zone? Are you guys getting into a lot of fights with the Mimitar, or are you finding more third party content? But it sounds like you and Harkin have a good little relationship that's going on.
Well, personally, I haven't actually really been playing that much for the past few months. I haven't really had the time, haven't really had the time to do it. So I've just been kind of watching from the sidelines. But from what I see, Mimitar are taking back a lot of systems, but there's been no real like pushes yet. Not anything hard. There was a small push on Flossus Win, which is good fun, and our man Aldrich led the way on that one. But for the most part, it seems like, from what I gather, it's fairly quiet. You know, there's the systems, the backwater systems are flipping as they do, as the flip starts to happen. When I was active, I was trying to drop on as many bashes as possible, but not always possible. But that's pretty much what I was doing whilst shit was flipping, and whilst I was active, just trying to fight on iHubs as much as possible, because that's when players are in space and doing stuff.
Yeah, no, definitely. And so do you have like a lot of third partying that kind of goes on in, because I know Galente faction warfare, especially right now, but even during your times, like all throughout faction warfare history, at least from the Galente point of view, or my Galente point of view, I should be more specific, is that there's been a lot of third partying by pirates is like a lot of our content, and that we don't fight the Keldari as much as we fight a lot of the pirates in the area.
It's kind of the same with us as well sometimes. At the moment, our war zone's really fucking quiet because there's not. I mean, the only real group around is dock workers, and they're quite a bit bigger than us, but they're still fightable. But we can't do it every weekend, and they're not too aggressive on us because they know we're big, but we're small at the same time. You know.
Yeah, no, I hear you on that. What kind of like size fleets are you guys fielding these days? I mean, we're at about like, I don't know, 5 to, maybe we can get up to around 10, 15 people sometimes.
It depends how many one-shot ults we can get. Look at the fleet and how many ults we can get into multi-box, you know. It can be anything from like 20 people on comms. I mean, pretty much everyone in the Alliance multi-box is on like a fleet. So it can sometimes be like, 10 in comms and 25 in fleet and shit like this, you know.
That's pretty nice. That's pretty solid, man.
It's stressful, is what it is.
I can imagine. We don't do that. Like I mean, we might have some eyes that we might have flying around a little bit, but multi-boxing is a whole nother level of this game. Where there's a couple people that are getting into it, or have, we have a few, expert PvPers with multi-boxing in the Galente, but I would say that's like the next tier level of being able to like kick ass and take names, is when you have
it's definitely helps, man. If you think about it, it's just an extra ship that you can have at your disposal.
And it just it looks impressive. I mean, even if you're less efficient than having that many people in fleet, when you have 25 in fleet, that's much more. You can engage many more targets, and you can also be avoided. There's people are gonna look at twice at that comparatively to like a 10-man fleet.
Yeah, I mean, it has its pros and cons. It's the smaller ship size you go, the harder it is. If cruiser and up, it's a lot more manageable. But when you try to do it in things like Desis and Frigs, it's just horrid, absolutely horrid. Just because the time to kill is so quick as well. It's just, and you've got to switch so much, it just becomes really overbearing.
Multi-boxing beers is an entry requirement for DNG.
This is true. In fact, I'm multi-boxing beers right now, I'm going to be honest.
That's the way to be. So what are some of the things that you'd like to see changed? And we kind of talked a little bit about this, and I know you expressed that you didn't feel like you had a lot of hope that there would be any change, but I'm hoping you might have some ideas of what might be changed, and why do you feel that CCP won't be making any major changes?
I feel like they won't be making changes because the player base has been asking for like half a decade with multiple forum posts on the main game forums and Reddit like every year, and nothing happens. Nothing happens. What? How can nothing happen? Which makes me believe that maybe either they're too afraid or they can't really do anything with it without fucking up loads of background things.
Yeah, definitely feel the feel that. I mean, having been in from the beginning, there's only been very minor changes that they've made.
Very, very small, isn't it? Just a minor adjustment of
I would say
numbers,
the
not really
biggest one
mechanics
was at
wise.
yeah, the biggest one was in the beginning when they switched the plexes from having thousands of rats inside of them that you had to either blow up. You didn't have to blow up. You just had to survive long enough.
Yeah.
Um, and
I think that was just when I started playing, so I never got to experience that myself. Thank God.
yeah, that was kind of crazy. Those were really weird days. I do remember the spectacle of having a million missiles chasing you that made you just go like, this looks awesome, but it's so retarded that one interceptor is tanking. Because that was back when they were primary on one thing.
Yeah.
Um,
The thing
and
is, there is a lot of things you can do with it as well. There's a lot of really good ideas that people are throwing around, which would make it so much more interesting. But it's whether CCP will take the dive and actually do it or not, or if they can or not. And it's weird. I don't know. It frustrates me quite a bit because I love it. Faction warfare. It's really really good fun. It's some of the best PvP in the game. I would say that's my
I agree with
opinion.
you. Objectively, I agree with you. And chat says that FW has stood still, bar the odd changes like stabs and plexes, which they've made a lot of little minor updates that have made
It's not
quality of
enough
life
though in
updates.
the reality of it, is it?
Right. It's not. There's never been like an expansion that focused on faction warfare that like like they've overhauled almost everything in the game.
Which
So
leads
it's
to like the biggest problem within faction warfare, and that is players. It needs a lot more players for its current mechanics to function properly.
right. The
With
more
the current play
players,
base you have now, that's why you have these heavy pendulum swings, because a lot of the space, no one lives in it, uses it, or anything like that, so it just flips and no one gives a shit.
no, absolutely. Like, yeah, there's tons of stuff that could be done to faction warfare to spice it up, to make it so that it really was a draw for a lot of people. Because the more people in faction warfare, the better off it is. Period.
Yeah.
It's one of the game aspects that it's all about death and destruction, and all that takes is just more people. And the more people you have, the more it feeds into it. The more that 0.0 alliances will come in and come out with a fleet of 30 or 100 or 200 people, because there's a fleet of 200 people waiting for them to go smash. And so
Exactly.
there's a lot of stuff that. So my question to you would be is, if let's say I just gave you the reins, you had 100% control, what's the first change that you would like to make if you were at the head of the
I would
development?
hire Ninja to stream the game, and that would instantly bring like 1 million people into the game. Boom, problem solved. So CCP, hire Ninja, dude. CCP, Hilmar, whatever your goddamn name is, I can't remember. Hire fucking Ninja.
All right, so the second thing that you would do.
I had a little list actually. So for me, the tier system is fucked. Like that is absolutely
agree.
brain dead. The fact that you're punished. Well, I mean, I guess you should somewhat be punished for losing, but you're already losing your space and your systems and your ability to make
small increments,
LP.
like start at 100, go up to like maybe up to 200, but like I about like if you were making double at tier 5, that's pretty fucking good. Like, and they could less. The thing is, I feel like they're all about this idea of having to have players dump a bunch of LP into a system in order to bump up the tier level. So they're creating this like sink, and they don't want to get rid of that sink, and they don't want to touch what's I don't know. I feel like they're paralyzed in fear of like, if we do anything, the pendulum will stop swinging.
It's been so abused before as well. That's the other part of it.
That's the thing, is this is all abused. It's all of the money making that is being done, like the large scale money making on this, is done through abusing the system, not by creating fun within the system.
Yeah, yeah, exactly.
And I don't understand this huge penalty, the 50%. You lose 50% of your LP at tier 1. Um, is just nuts. And
It just gives you no incentive to really like Oplex or Dplex. I mean, yeah, it depends what system you're going to Dplex, but there's not really great incentive unless you're going to look for fights. But a lot of the time, if you're plexing some rando system, you're not going to get fights. You're going to spend days just plexing all these shitty systems up.
well, somebody says decouple missions from the tier system. Oh, yes. So you mean the bonus? I think that would be another thing, because missions are
Yeah,
affected by Warzone control already. At least I
yeah,
don't
yeah,
know how you guys do it, but if I do missioning, I will grab like 11 missions up all at once.
yeah,
But
yeah.
if I
Well,
don't
I do
have,
it.
yeah, if I don't have access to those stations, I can't grab. I can grab all the high sec ones and a couple of the maybe low sec ones that are just on the peripheral of the war zone that can't be flipped. Um, but if all of a sudden I can't grab up 15 missions at once and go do them with 5, 6 other dudes, and then they all grab 50, and that keeps us out in space for the entire night in ships, that are explodable and going to
Yeah.
beacons and. Um,
See, I'm in two minds about missions because I run them a lot. Whenever we're high tier, I run them a lot so I can afford nice stuff. And it is a very good way for faction warfare players to make ISK, but it is abused by the farmers. So, in one sense, it's good, and in another sense, it's really, really bad.
Yep, and somebody was saying that they have no control over botting, which is crazy. And the thing is that defensive plexing, I feel, is a big problem right now, because if you're not botting, it's basically botting, because you could just put
Yeah.
a Tristan with nothing in it whatsoever into a deplex and just walk away.
Well, this also brings me into another point that I've got, and that is faction warfare rewards not fighting.
Yes.
The less you fight, the faster you can take or defend a system.
Yeah, it would be kind of nice if there was like an LP counter or something that like would, like, instead of like stopping the clock on like the thing, it would give you like more LP for like killing. The thing is that there's some manipulation. You always have to worry about
Yeah,
manipulation.
exactly. That is the main problem. That anything that they do can be gamed so easily. Like if you get more of a reward for killing someone, someone's just going to put an ult into any militia and just farm that reward.
Right. But I think that there are ways of at least creating things that are harder for bots to be able to manipulate. And one of the things that right now I personally think is kind of messed up is that when you're fighting in the offensive plex and absolutely in the defensive plex, there's nothing stopping you from just warping out. And that needs to be something that needs to be changed. I feel like either there needs to be like a warp bubble that, like, if you go in to go plexing, you end up getting stopped from being able to warp out.
It seems to be some sort of derivative of the Plex mechanics, and something that it seems like it could have been something that they were working on for faction warfare.
Yeah,
not entirely sure, but it's very similar in its mechanics, except it's got that lovely warp bubble which stops you from just bailing.
No, and I was talking with somebody else about just over at my house last night, Thursday night, about how ESS seems to be derived from the concept of faction warfare, and that's something that I kind of like. But I feel like that some of that love could come to faction warfare, and even just putting an opposing rat inside of the deplexing would be great. And I think all rats should have points. I think they should hold you down.
I think that would be a lot better than like a warp bubble or something like that. Yeah, or you get some sort of combat timer which stops you from warping, like you have on a Citadel, where you can't warp for like 30 seconds or whatever it is when you tap a Citadel.
There's a shout from Suicide Ninja Cat that says that, please, for the love of God, no warp bubbles in plexes.
yeah. Rats having points, or some sort of like Citadel similar kind of no warp once tapping mechanic. I don't know, dude. I don't know.
Yeah, and I think that's this is some of the stuff that is good for discussion, though, and is one of these areas that I think simple changes, though, can be made to introduce. But I think there needs to be truthfully an overhaul, because they've always done simple changes, and that's all they've done to faction warfare, and it's not making it better per se. It's faction warfare needs a whole new lifeblood, and my idea is I think that CCP needs more direct involvement personally. I think they need to actually have events in faction warfare. They need to have incursion like things. They need to drop some dreads in the middle of nowhere. They need to have two GMs grab up
thing is,
in militia and
this
say,
has been
go
happening
fight.
in our war zone, and it was the catalyst for a lot of combat. And it was like the whole Flossiswin thing, as Harkon was saying the other week, that the whole reason Flossiswin started was because of CCP devs basically getting stuck into the storyline and making us have objectives and something to do. Saying, you know, if you what was it, like the whole mission embargo was like against God's rules or some shit like that, and
right, yeah. I mean, that was
to like big fights in Flossiswin. It was fucking amazing.
Right, and the thing is that I feel like 0.0 is a place where you don't like. I always find it weird that the CCP will grab a fleet of just random newbies or whoever wants to come and join, and then go out to 0.0. And it's like, why aren't you going into militias, grabbing up a bunch of people and going and doing an objective and having events, having things like, I would love to see like a specific system be targeted and say, hey, whoever plexes, you know, the most in this system is going to get these rewards. Whatever militia has it, you know, you have to keep it. The Amar have to keep it, and if they keep it by X date, then you're good. If it gets flipped before that, then
I agree with that fully.
You know, we can have some rewards, we can have some things, some events. The thing is, I've been told manpower is a problem, and I'm like, I feel like that could even be some voluntary motherfucking shit.
Off nullsec and put them in fucking faction warfare development, because there's a lot of shit going on in nullsec that really, you know, they get so much stuff every year recently, so much stuff that a lot of it gets forgotten about and unused. Meanwhile, we get some minor shitty changes that really doesn't change the grand scale of faction warfare in any way, shape or form.
There is a statement here about you know, they're not liking the idea of bubbles or rats pointing or that stuff, but they like the idea, and some people are talking about the reverting. If you're not inside of the plex, it starts deplexing itself, or like, you know, replexing itself, I guess. Which I find that kind of interesting. But you know, I think that a lot of the small details on faction warfare, I think are possible to a small degree. And my hope, but I think is the much more unlikely thing is that CCP will start doing major events inside of faction warfare.
Well, it seemed like they were doing stuff earlier on in the year.
It looked like
a few months ago, where they dropped dreadnoughts in Flossiswin that was orbitally bombarding one of the planets.
Yep, I saw that. I was really interested in that.
Responded to the fleet, and some locals dropped supers on the dreads, and we came in legions and kind of defended the wreck and looted everything going on as part of the story. And then we kind of sat there waiting we're like, what's next? So what now? And then for like a week or two, I think it was about a week or two, there was lots of diamond rats of both factions flying around, and it made the warzone seem pretty exciting. I remember there was a few fleets we were doing, and we were like traveling to and from. We're like, fuck, there's rats the other side of the gate. Like, shit, we've got to now kill these rats, and it's an organized fleet of like, and they're pretty spicy, you know. It can be
I love the diamond rat stuff. Fight. I really think they should bring diamond rats to faction warfare. That was I just submitted an article, and one of my points in there was diamond rats in faction warfare. It would be epic.
They bring it in our warzone. I don't know how it's been in yours, but in our warzone it seems like they've been trying some stuff, but I feel our warzone is a lot quieter than yours, so I think they've got an easier time testing things like this.
That's interesting. So maybe they are moving towards some of that stuff.
One can hope, but like, I don't know. They did that, and then it's been dead silent for months on end now. I think that must have been maybe June. I can't remember exactly when it was.
Yeah, and Tristan has a point that the rollbacking of the timer would stop. It would encourage people to not run as much. You know, and that's, I think that's kind of the core thing about faction warfare, is that it needs to be all about pushing people to fighting each other.
Exactly. Like I said, PvP, you know, it doesn't reward fighting. It rewards not fighting.
Right. And that is something that more than anything, I think that needs to be CCP's focus is how do I get people to shoot each other? And that's where I think like events and targeting systems and giving out rewards for actual participation in a hotly
Yeah.
contested Warzone system, like we need to step away from being like the entire Warzone is the entire Warzone. It needs to be like the war is happening here. This is where you go. This is where you die.
The thing
Maybe
is, it
some
also doesn't
peripheral.
seem like a war zone most of the time because there's just so little story interaction or anything in the news about like taking certain systems. Like unless the devs themselves have gone out of their way to create a storyline, nothing really. Yeah, it
No, and
just doesn't feel significant
that's one of the things that I feel like CCP
or alive.
misanalyzed when it came to faction warfare is that they wanted it to be all player driven in faction warfare, and at this point in time, it feels more than anything that it's bot driven.
Yeah, I guess
Personally,
where it's scaled down so much over the years and people have left that it was a lot easier for it to be more player driven. Whereas now there's significantly less faction warfare players every bloody year.
sorry, I'm just reading over some of the stuff here from chat here. Maybe fighting Plex that you can't leave until it's finished, but you get way more than the 0.3% flip.
See, yeah, this is something that I've kind of thought similar to. Is like fighting in bigger class ships like cruiser and up you need to have a bigger reward for putting more risk on the table. So I think like for me, if you're fighting for a medium or a large or an open, then it needs to have a larger percentage amount because yeah, I mean essentially you can win a siege by just doing novice and smalls, and you're really not risking anything.
Mm-hmm. No, I agree. And yeah, and another person in chat says it's like taking a frontline system or generating a flashpoint system where you get extra rewards for holding, plexing, killing in that system, and there is the possibility of manipulating these things, but it's much harder when it's under the like guise of CCP. Like their eyes are watching on it because it's one system. If you're just flinging out, rookie ships, it shouldn't count towards it. It should be balanced more towards you don't get as much back, but similar to kind of the LP system, which I know has been manipulated for the PvP system of LP. But I like that kind of concept where reward people for being engaged in actions that they're doing now, instead of actions that they were doing months and months ago. Like that's, I don't know. It feels like at this point in time, the people that flexed up insanely back in the day, are benefiting way more than the people that are trying to play and get LP these days. And it's
Yeah,
all
yeah,
about you should only be getting LP during certain times. When it's tier one, you should jump over to the enemy faction and start doing their shit. And then when their shit goes down, you should jump back over to whoever's winning to make some money. And I feel like the drive in faction warfare is much more about, farming ISK and farming LP to make ISK than it is to actually fight at this point in time. And there needs to be much more driven. And the only thing that I can think of is creating those front lines, creating those, singular flashpoint systems that you are forcing the militia to get involved in order to really make their large LP. Maybe still
I've
have
always
a
liked the
little bit.
idea of like kind of like an escort thing as well. I've always thought that'd be pretty interesting. Like you've got escort a VIP from one point to the other, and other groups can come intercept. But then also, I feel if you do something like that, then the opportunity of being like hot dropped is a lot higher. But then that can also lead to more space violence. It can go either way. If
Well,
you
right.
prepare to be hot dropped on, you can counter it.
Well, and there's also different kind of things that you can do to less incentivize people that if you make it all LP based and basically, um, there is that is always the problem with some of that stuff is that you're gonna have third parties that are gonna come in and mess
I
with
know I would
anything.
third party or someone else doing it. To be honest, oh
But you can also build around with that concept
yeah,
that there is
exactly.
going to be a third party that's going to
You can
come
bait
in.
someone out. You know what I mean? You can bait out another fleet. You can bait out like a local pirate group that you think's been hunting you or hunting your little escort mission. You can bait them out and
And
how to drop
CCP,
them.
I feel like this is the area where CCP can intervene a lot better than intervening in anything that's happening in 0.0 or any event that's happening, anywhere else, because this is where they can be like, okay, so you dropped a bunch of fucking dreads and supers on top of a, VIP escort. Well, we have, and make it known that, if a Sino is lit near this thing, or in the same system,
Diamond Rats come as well.
Diamond Rats will come and assist the fleet, because the call came out for even bigger forces than what the Capsuleers are being able to field. You can mess with it a lot more. You can also have GMs behind it which are pulling people into their fleet, instead of just having it be just something that a player triggers and then that a player is all in charge of. Because when you have CCP behind it, people just come in droves just because there's CCP doing something.
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of really great ideas and that could be used and inspired from, but we'll see if anything actually happens.
Yeah, and Trishan's saying, like, FW has been a selling point for many CMS reps. Ideas like frontline warfare, where limited systems are the frontline, pay LP at a greater, but don't seem to get enough attention despite the great content that they could provide. Faction war accommodates for third parties. Those in FW get payment for holding the timer via spaceship violence. Those neutral third parties don't gain the numeration for their time. So yeah, they don't get anything for these are some of the things that you would start being able with. Third parties are starting to maybe pick sides and throw alts inside of that. But then that opens up the door for a fourth party to come in, and all of a sudden you have if there
but then
is
that's still players in space doing space violence.
Absolutely,
it's still a good thing.
Yep. And no, I agree. Like I think
is in fact the original Divine Kumador of the Amar Militia, by the way.
Oh, well. So I agree with a lot that he's saying here completely. Sorry, that's my doorbell.
Wakey.
But awesome. Well, before we kind of wrap up here, one of the things I always want to make sure I do is give you a chance to give any shout outs or any promotions that you'd like to make at this time. Kind of just open up the floor to talk about whatever you'd like to talk about, or promote whatever you'd like to promote.
So I want to give a big shout out to our AT team, who just absolutely smashed their first match.
Oh, actually, can we talk about that real quick?
Yeah, let's talk about AT.
So you guys got involved in the AT. Tell me what was. So you didn't know about the prizes and how they were being given out. Have you guys been doing this for multiple years, or is this your first year?
For me, well, I wasn't in the team in the end. I didn't have enough time to. I missed like a month's worth of practice in the end, so I didn't have time to really commit to it, unfortunately, which sucks massive amounts of balls. But so our team is made of a lot. They've got a lot of tournament experience, with some other guys within the Alliance thrown in as well. So we've got Damasus as our team captain, who's been a long-time member of the Amar Militia, and he fought in several tournaments, player run and CCP run, and has always placed really, really well. And and it's like his team from previous tournaments, and then a few Control V guys thrown in as well that are very good PvPers as well, and they formed this really, really great team of very good players and very good theory crafters. A nice balance of the two.
And you guys are fighting. You guys were fighting in the tournament today, correct?
Today, yeah.
How'd you guys do? Did that finish, or is that coming up?
It was just before the podcast, in fact.
Oh, awesome!
So yeah, it was a 100. It was a clean wipe, basically. The comp that Control V bought was pretty much a counter to what they bought, because we were able to tank their DPS, because we had just big boy tanks. And when they would hit their rapid reloads, we were able to rep back up with his arm. So that's
awesome.
Good.
Ooh, I think I'm losing you a little bit there.
the wind blowing miles out the window. We were facing literally rigged, and it was a clean wipe. Very good jump. A lot of lasers were used.
It's starting to cut out just a little bit, unfortunately. Sounds like your internet's. I know you said that you had a little bit of internet issues that might come up. We might be experiencing that.
It was low tech. It can be a bit rough sometimes. Or is it still trash?
Yeah, it's actually starting to still cut out here. But let's see here. Do you want to try one more time?
I forgot what I was saying, dude. I forgot what I was saying.
Well, we were talking about the Alliance tournament. And you were talking about the comp that they were bringing and the comp that you brought.
Yeah, the bought was rapid missiles, and because it has that large reload time, we were able to rep pretty well in it because we had the Zarmas, which has that ping bonus.
Oh, I got some of that. I got some of that, but yeah, it's pretty rough. But we are coming towards the end here, and I do need to wrap up as my D&D party is just deciding to just jump right into my stream apparently. So,
pieces of shit, dude. Pieces of shit.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much for coming on, though. I want to get you back on. Hopefully we can find a time that your internet isn't dying out and my D&D party isn't just deciding to raid in front of me. So. Awesome. Well,
no worries.
Thank you all also for watching. If you're interested in joining the war effort, you can definitely hit up Dirt and Glitter, as well as anybody else that's inside of Local as Primary Alliance. You also hit up Golden Age Stories if you're interested in the Galente side of things. Alt Spies, welcome.
Recruiting. Is recruiting. Control V is recruiting.
I think we got that at the end. Control V is recruiting. And
Ohpehk RS1.
And I hope this gives you some good little bit of insight into faction warfare. If you're interested in keeping up with the news, you can definitely check out our podcast, the Federation Frontline Report. We are on YouTube. We're on podcasts such as Spotify, iTunes. And you can interact with us live. Normally, we're on Twitch every Sunday at 2200 Eve time, which I think that's changing up because we observe daylight savings time, and so daylight savings time is going to switch that up a little bit here. But normally it's 5 p.m. Central Time. So we'll see how that happens with the internet, the time changes that happen in the universe, because time is so fucked up in the universe. Anyways, if you have news that you'd like us to talk about on the show, you can send me an email, Frozen Fallout in game, or you can email us at federationfrontlinereport@gmail.com. Thank you all for watching, and have a great night.
Guys.